welcome to QUT News.
Hello.
Queenslanders are being warned to get ready for storm season. The Weather Bureau is predicting an average number of cyclones, but they say they'll bring more heatwave conditions than severe floods.
Months after the devastation of Tropical Cyclone Debbie, Queensland continues to rebuild. Since 2011, the state has been hit by more than 50 significant natural disasters.
We never can predict the exact timing of cyclones or the exact impact, and what we saw from Tropical Cyclone Debbie was an absolutely huge impact across our state.
And the wild weather is already upon us again.
We're very much in the midst of severe storm season, as we saw from Bundaberg last week when we had severe storms causing flash flooding.
According to the Bureau of Meteorology, we should expect another typical summer, cyclones and all.
We'd look to be getting about 10 to 13 tropical cyclones forming somewhere in Australian waters this year.
Of these cyclones, it's predicted at least one will cross the Queensland coast. October is the time to make sure that you're ready for the storm season. Emergency services are encouraging residents to tidy up their gardens and secure any loose items which can become missiles in a tropical storm. With summer on its way, planning for the what if will help to keep families safe. Elizabeth Moss, QUT News.
Highway robbery. That's what Queensland's petrol stations are being accused of by the consumer watchdog. The ACCC has found motorists here are paying 3.5 cents a litre more than those interstate.
Prices are skyrocketing and people are not happy.
Every time I go to fill up my car, it seems to cost more and more.
Especially if you're on a backpacker budget.
In New South Wales, we filled our car up for about $121, and now here it's $128.
The ACCC has found Queenslanders are paying as much as $50 million more for petrol each year.
I think it's ridiculous, so it needs to be changed.
The Premier says it's time federal authorities intervene.
I think it's a bit unfair that Queensland tends to pay higher prices than the rest of Australia, and frankly, it's not good enough.
She's also demanding more from the consumer watchdog.
I would like to see the ACCC implement a real-time disclosure right across the country.
They do exist in other areas, such as in New South Wales, so it's time that Queensland motorists had that same access to those transparent real-time fuel data.
The Queensland government is urging motorists to use petrol price comparison apps to ensure they get the best deal at the pump. The RACQ says competition will inevitably cut costs.
Fuel retailers will only reduce their prices if there is pressure to do so.
Some are already using these apps.
There was a difference in 40 cents between one service station and the next, and that was like within a distance of, 5-6 kilometres.
Taking some of the pressure out of the pump. Maudie Veltema, QUT News.
Leukemia patients say the listing of an expensive drug on the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme will save lives. Until now, most patients haven't been able to afford it. Now it's boosted their chances of survival.
Brisbane man Gary Heidke has been living with chronic lymphocytic leukemia for 19 years. He says the creation of the drug Imbruvica has given him new hope.
He's worked incredibly well for me. I've just gone on living a normal life. I go to work, got my pilot's licence in that time, and a number of other things, so yeah, life goes on, thankfully.
Around 1,500 Australians are diagnosed with this most common form of leukemia each year. Until now, Imbruvica has been beyond the financial reach of most. A few lucky ones have had access through medical trials, but it's about to benefit everyone.
So the fact that they go from an alternative of having a chemotherapy, which is very intrusive in their lifestyle, they generally can't work all the way through, to a drug where people lead a completely normal life. That in itself is an incredible change.
Until December 1st, Imbruvica will cost $10,000 per month, but soon the price will plunge to just $36 per script. Imbruvica is taken as a tablet if and when chemotherapy is ineffective.
No drug is completely free of side effects, but in our experience with all of the people that we have on these drugs, they lead a normal life.
I found out that ibrutinib was an option, that was a huge relief, and particularly that the side effects are minimal, if any.
A positive step for leukemia patients. Zach Adkins, QUT News.
A cyclist has died and a motorbike rider remains in critical condition after a crash at Logan yesterday. Police say a 68-year-old cyclist was attempting to cross Wembley Road when he collided with a 40-year-old man on a motorbike. The accident happened just after dusk on Sunday. The cyclist died while on the scene, while the motorbike rider has life-threatening injuries.
The body of an Australian woman who died in Fiji on her honeymoon is being brought home. Kelly Clark died from severe pneumonia on Friday.
Kelly Clark's family rushed to her devastated husband's side to bring their daughter home. The 24-year-old Australian nurse went to the hospital with stomach pains last Wednesday. Her condition rapidly declined, and she was placed in an induced coma due to organ failure and septicemia.
She told me she was scared she was going to die. I just told her I love her.
She died 1 hour before a Medivac team was due to take her to Sydney for emergency treatment. Although the original diagnosis was typhoid, the cause of death has now been confirmed as severe pneumonia. Her distraught family is mourning the life of her beloved wife, sister, and daughter.
She's got the biggest heart. She always had time for anyone.
A fundraiser to bring her body home raised more than $50,000. As the couple's travel insurance will cover that, the money now will go to her funeral. Charlotte Hartshorn, QUT News.
The federal government says it's committed to eliminating major diseases in the Asia Pacific. The health minister told a major summit in Brisbane it would only be of benefit to Australia if our region's developing nations had better health.
Health officials from 37 countries have gathered in Brisbane for the World Health Organisation's Western Pacific Conference. During the week, they'll discuss key issues including the elimination of communicable diseases, food safety, and strengthening the regulation of medicines. After the traditional opening ceremony, the federal health minister told delegates the partnership between regional countries has never been more crucial.
So there could not be anything more important than the regional cooperation and the global cooperation which the World Health Organization has brought over its life.
A key goal is improving the health and welfare of the Western Pacific.
We've got about 1.9 million people in this region, so the decisions that are going to be taken here this week by the health leaders are going to affect lots of people's lives going forward.
Conference organisers are encouraging member nations to share their health concerns.
So making sure that we're promoting health to achieve sustainable development all around the world and not leaving anybody behind.
It's the first time the World Health Organisation has held the event in Brisbane. The regional committee hopes to strengthen the relationships of all 37 countries while it shares medical and drug developments, benefiting Australia and the region. Ashley Dwan, QUT News.
As far as protests go, this one is stating the bleating obvious. An Australian businessman has used a flock of sheep in a David versus Goliath legal battle over the right to use the word UGG.
It might not be the biggest protest happening in America right now, but it's definitely the most Aussie. Eddie Oyger owns Australian Leather, which has been making the famous UGG boots since the early 1990s. He's being sued for millions by a US company for using the term UGG Boot Australia, which they claim to have global rights over. Oyger says deckers have been pulling the wool over consumers' eyes as the boots are actually made in China and Vietnam.
I have no choice, so I've mortgaged everything I have just to fight them. And I have to because someone's got to stand up to them.
South Australian Senator Nick Xenophon flew over to join the protest.
The fact that their website actually says you can tell it's a fake if it says it's been made in Australia or New Zealand because ours are made in China. I mean, go figure. Deckers have really been pulling the wool over the eyes of consumers and they've literally been trying to fleece Eddie.
Police arrived to disperse the crowd, but it wasn't taken well by some, who briefly escaped down the street, with a little extra publicity for Oyger's cause to boot. Tom Copley, QUT News.
How about spending a night with two Australian rugby league legends? The Cameron Smith and Johnathan Thurston will face off in a grand final rematch at Suncorp Stadium next year. The special testimonial game is a tribute to the Storm and Cowboy captains.
That we're going to be playing on Suncorp together or against each other. So it's more about celebrating what we've been able to achieve together in our career and sort of giving back to the fans and all the people that have made our career so special.
Tickets start at $20 and a percentage of proceeds will go towards the players' charities.
Updating our main story, at least one major cyclone will cross Queensland's coast this season, and the Bureau says get ready for record heat.
And still to come, the harsh reality for children in refugee camps. Hundreds of thousands of people have paraded through Barcelona, angry at Catalonia's plans to break from the rest of Spain. Police put the number of protesters at 350,000.
In a sign of unity, protesters rallied in central Barcelona chanting "Catalonia is Spain" and "Together we are stronger." Catalan authorities say 90% of people in the wealthy northeastern region back independence. Protests have escalated after tens of thousands of people gathered in 50 cities across Spain, with some defending national unity and others calling for talks to defuse the crisis. The Spanish Prime Minister says he wouldn't rule out removing Catalonia's government and raise the idea of a new local election if the region claimed independence. The political standoff has divided the country, pushed several big companies to move their headquarters out of Catalonia and disrupted the Spanish economy. It's also prompted urgent calls for the European Commission for Catalan and Spanish leaders to find a political solution. Catalonia held a referendum on independence on October the 1st, with Spain's Constitutional Court declaring the vote illegal. James Ives, QUT News.
British Prime Minister Theresa May has hinted either the Foreign Secretary or the Chancellor could be sacked. It comes as pressure mounts on the PM to reassert her authority.
Theresa May told UK newspapers it's never been her style to hide from a challenge, signalling she's not afraid to axe Boris Johnson and Philip Hammond. The Prime Minister's leadership has been questioned after she lost her majority in Parliament in June's snap election. She tried to bring her Conservative Party together at the annual conference in Manchester, but the event was a PR disaster.
The deficit is back to pre-crisis levels. Sounds as if my voice isn't on track.
The Prime Minister's attention now is on social and racial issues. Mrs May says findings will soon be released about how people of different racial backgrounds are treated in the UK, with regards to health, education, employment and the criminal justice system.
The purpose of publishing the data is precisely to shine a light on where there are issues that we need to address as a government.
In Scotland, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says any independence vote will wait.
Well, I've said I will consider the timing again when we have more clarity about what we are facing in March 2019 than we do just now.
Ms Sturgeon says the relationship between Scotland and Britain has changed since Mrs May lost majority. Holly Parkinson, QUT News.
Gaunt figures and painfully thin children. Aid groups say this is the reality of Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh. The hundreds of thousands of refugees there are living off minimal food.
Aid groups say malnutrition is widespread among the 500,000 Rohingya Muslims now living in camps in Bangladesh. 90% of Rohingya refugees have told UNICEF they're living on one meal per day. They're living in squalid conditions, forced to wait in long queues to collect their food.
And for among them, what we have learned, around 150,000 women and children need urgent support to prevent and recover from malnutrition.
UNICEF is treating more than 3,400 severely malnourished children. They're also educating women on how to prepare meals and monitoring children's height and weight. Mental health services also are in high demand.
And still now we provide service to 8,400 traumatized children and mothers.
The UN has labelled the military operation in Rakhine State a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. Charlotte Hartshorn, QUT News.
Security for the Chicago Marathon yesterday was increased in the wake of the mass shooting in Las Vegas. Chicago Police Department deployed more than 1,000 plainclothed officers. The FBI and Homeland Security also were there. Pedestrians and vehicles were blocked from the marathon route, and areas around were cordoned off with concrete blocks. The Chicago Marathon is one of the city's largest spectator events, with 45,000 participants. At least 11 people, including 2 children, were killed in airstrikes on a marketplace in northwestern Syria. The Syrian Civil Defense, better known as the White Helmets, believe these strikes in Idlib were carried out by the Syrian regime.
Once a busy marketplace is now a scene of smoke and rubble. Airstrikes in the Idlib town of Marat al-Numan on the weekend have left women and children dead and many civilians injured. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says the death toll is expected to rise as locals and emergency services continue to pull people from the debris. Nearby commercial buildings have also been badly damaged as the cleanup begins and locals look for answers. The White Helmets believe the strikes were carried out by government forces. Idlib is one of 4 so-called de-escalation zones under a deal brokered by Russia, Turkey and Iran in May. But the group currently controlling the area isn't part of the agreement. Idlib and neighbouring parts of northwest Syria are home to more than 2 million people. Many are refugees from other formerly rebel-held regions that fell to pro-government forces. Elise Donaldson, QUT News.
Hurricane Nate was downgraded to a tropical depression after making its second landfall near Mississippi. Winds weakened to 56 kilometres an hour, but Nate still packs a punch.
The hurricane brought a burst of flooding and power outages to the US Gulf Coast, sparing towns more catastrophic damage. Biloxi residents were relieved to find minimal destruction as they began recovery and cleanup efforts.
We slept through it mostly. We didn't lose power, which was really good, so just a little bit of cleanup today and we're back to normal.
Mississippi Power says almost 4,000 customers lost power while Nate continued to move inland. A number of emergency services were forced to rely on backup power while the storm hit.
We were actually out of power here for about 8 hours, I think. We ran on a generator. But other than that, it seems like we pretty much got through unscathed.
Heavy rain caused flooding in streets and highways, but levels quickly receded after the hurricane weakened. Nate made its first landfall near the mouth of the Mississippi River in southeast Louisiana, with maximum winds of almost 146 kilometres per hour. The storm cell withered as it made its second landfall in Mississippi. It was the first hurricane in Mississippi since Katrina in 2005. Andy Strudwick, QUT News.
A rare phenomenon known as the fire devil has been filmed in Portugal as the country battles extreme heat and wildfires. These kinds of fire tornadoes are formed when flames are caught up in dust and wind. This one was caught on camera by Portuguese broadcaster TVI in central Portugal. 64 people died in fires this European summer, the deadliest natural disaster Portugal has ever seen.
US Vice President Mike Pence has walked out of an NFL game in Indianapolis after some of the players knelt during the national anthem. President Trump later tweeted he had asked Mr. Pence to leave if such a protest occurred. Mr. Pence echoed this on his own Twitter, writing, "I will always stand for our flag and our national anthem." The demonstrations began last year, protesting police brutality against racial minorities.
Holden's David Reynolds and co-driver Luke Youlden are still on a high after a triumphant Bathurst 1000 win yesterday. The duo produced a giant killing performance to beat out powerhouse teams and claim victory in wet and wild conditions.
Kings of the Mountain, David Reynolds and Luke Youlden, woke this morning still in shock over their maiden Bathurst win at Mount Panorama yesterday.
I went to bed last night and I was having a really good dream, and I woke up and I was still the champion, so I couldn't believe it.
I used to get up pretty damn early with Dad there and just watch the whole day and just dream one day I'd stand on the top of that podium, and to finally do it. Still hasn't sunk in.
The two got their hands on the Peter Brock Trophy after finishing almost 4 seconds ahead of fellow Holden driver Scott Pye in a 7-hour battle. The team persisted through difficult conditions, which saw star drivers fall away, including pre-race favourite Scott McLaughlin, who was forced to retire. It was a sweet victory for owner Betty Klemenko after a horror last season. Reynolds thanked Youlden, his crew and baby Jesus from a podium, met by thousands of rain-soaked Holden supporters. The 32-year-old was determined not to match his previous best result of second place 5 years ago.
Plenty of disappointments at this place, but it kind of all makes up for it.
Reynolds is now in 6th place in the drivers' season standings. Elise Donaldson, QUT News.
Aussie tennis young gun Nick Kyrgios has been outclassed by world number 1 Rafael Nadal in the China Open final. Nadal was emphatic in this 6-2, 6-1 victory over the 19th ranked Kyrgios. The Spaniard broke serve 4 times in the 92-minute encounter to collect his 6th title of the season.
For me, first time in Beijing, and to make the finals pretty good. I played some great tennis and wasn't to me today. He played unbelievable, but he's one of the greatest of all time.
Kyrgios will now turn his attention to the Shanghai Masters, where he's due to face American Steve Johnson in the opening round.
Deon Savage has all the weather news next.
And the solar car race through the heart of Australia.
Hello, time to take a look at the weather. It's been a cloudy day in Brisbane with a little thunderstorm activity around. A series of upper-level troughs sweeping through the south of the state will cause more unstable conditions over the next few days. Around the southeast today, Brisbane reached a top of 30 degrees, 27 on the Goldie, 1 degree cooler on the Sunshine Coast, while Ipswich reached 33. If you're heading interstate tomorrow, it could be cloudy in Sydney, 22 the top. Expect a cold start for Canberra, a sunny 21 in Melbourne, showers for Perth and a warm 35 degrees in Darwin. Back to Queensland, a mostly sunny Tuesday in the north with tops in the low 30s in Cairns, Townsville and Mackay. Hot in the west, 39 degrees predicted for Longreach and Mount Isa, and a medium chance of showers for Bundaberg. Down to Moreton Bay, expect 15 to 20 knot southwesterly winds turning southeasterly and seas below 1 metre. Tomorrow on both coasts there is a high chance of showers. It'll be quite warm though, 27 and 30 degree maximums. Finally, the 3-day outlook for Brisbane, and keep those umbrellas handy. Tuesday, possible showers from late morning. Wednesday, showers in a max of 27, but showers should begin easing on Thursday. That's the weather for now. Back to you, Cassandra.
Thanks, Deon. Nearly 40 solar-powered cars are racing across the centre of Australia in the World Solar Challenge. Teams from countries including Chile, South Korea and the Netherlands are vying to reach Adelaide first.
It's the 30th anniversary of the Transcontinental World Solar Challenge. The 3,000-kilometre journey from Darwin to Adelaide is, for many, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Teams compete across 3 different classes to find a design as the world's most efficient electric car. The Netherlands team has cars built specifically for sustained endurance.
The field is so far apart this year. All the cars look completely different. All we know is we got a good car. We got it running perfectly in the last couple of days, and we're really confident we're going to do everything it takes to win.
Mississippi Choctaw high school students also are competing under less stringent racing conditions.
We're very competitive where we are, so we wanted to bring it on a more upper scale and to see how we do.
Teams looking for pole position must find the balance between speed, endurance and efficiency. Western Sydney Uni is competing in its 3rd event.
Overtaking takes a lot of energy that we would otherwise not want to use. So we feel very happy to be in 3rd, but we don't have to overtake that many cars leaving Darwin.
Japan's Tokai University holds the record for the fastest crossing. It's currently 2nd behind the Netherlands. Tom Copley, QUT News.
That brings you up to date with QUT News. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.